Hey everybody, Caleb here. Today I've got this Buckocaster electric guitar. I've been asked to do a couple of things on this. The first being change the pickguard out and pull the neck pickup out for the Esquire setup. The other thing I've been asked to do is change the neck out for this maple board reverse telecaster setup. We'll knock these out pretty quick, but the first thing we'll have to do is take these strings off of here. So while we're taking the strings off of here, you may notice we are in a different location than usual. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, which that is possible, my name is Caleb Mills. I've been doing guitar repair for about 5 years now, and for the last couple of weeks, I have been working part-time at Butler Music in Harrisonville, Missouri, doing some small repairs on their instrument stock and doing setup work for walk-in customers. Now that we've got the strings off of this, we can get the neck off of here. I'm starting to loosen them by hand, but eventually I will just grab the drill and back them out the rest of the way. I've found that I kind of like breaking them loose by hand and then grabbing the drill to do the bulk of the work. Now that the neck's out, we can really focus on just the electronics. The first thing that I'm going to do is pull all the screws out of the pickguard. Once I'm done unhooking the neck pickup, I will be able to just lift the whole thing out of there that way. I'm doing this by hand because there's less chance of me slipping and scratching up this pickguard. I know that it's coming off the guitar, but I still don't want to put any unnecessary scratches in anything I don't have to. If I can keep this in one good piece, then I should try, at the least. Now that the pickguard is loose, I can loosen up the control plate so I can get underneath, and we can really start our soldering adventure. My camera had a little bit of trouble focusing here. Fortunately, we don't stick with this camera for a whole lot longer, but the first thing we'll need to do is actually unscrew the switch from the control plate. I was not given a new control plate to cover up the switch hole, so for as long as we're working on this today, we're going to have an empty slot where our switch used to be because we're removing that neck pickup. Once those screws are out, the switch should pretty much just fall straight out. And we can eventually work on desoldering those components. So basically I can just undo everything on this switch. I am going to have to rewire the bridge pickup back to the volume knob directly, but step one is pull everything off the switch and then deground, unground, remove the ground on the neck pickup. Fortunately, unsoldering is a lot easier than soldering. I by no means am a solder expert. I know enough to get myself in trouble, and that's about all I need to do for this sort of thing. Just about got that switch entirely unhooked. We'll set that aside and put it in the bag of parts that we're pulling out of this thing. I still need to do the ground for that neck pickup, and then that neck pickup should come right out of there. the tweezers have been a recent introduction into my soldering set. Once again, I'm not a great soldering master, but yeah, getting my fingers a little bit out of there has been a big help. I had a little bit of trouble heating up that grounding solder pad on the back of the volume pot, but eventually I get there. And I'm gonna have to reground some stuff that came up with it. Not a big deal. But now that the neck pickup is entirely loose, I should be able to just lift that pickguard out, take the whole thing with it, and set the whole thing aside. Now, I did leave that yellow wire that ran from the switch to the volume pot. I'll need to pull that out, and I'll need to reground what I lost. And now we're going to suffer from really bad camera focus. Like I said, we won't be on this camera for very long before I am fed up and switch cameras. Trying to find a clean way of getting that yellow wire out where I can easily solder it or heat it up to remove it. There's a lot going on in that little cavity. I got it. And then I have to rewire that bridge hot output to the volume pot. There's a lot going on in that little space. We'll get her. If I can keep a hold of it. Once we've got everything well attached, we can flip that over. Fitting the wires back in there. It's gonna be not quite the way they came out, but we'll get it. And we can screw that plate back down so it doesn't move around. We get a good idea of how it's gonna work once it's screwed down. Once we get those screwed down, we're gonna want to test this to make sure I didn't muck something up. So I'll plug her in a little bit off camera, raise the volume, tap the pickup. Glad to hear we're getting noise. It's hard to hear, but the tone knob is working just as well. Once we're done there, we can put this new pickguard on. This one obviously doesn't have the cutout for the neck pickup because we're looking for that Esquire setup. I gotta find a place where it's gonna sit properly on there. What I'm seeing as I'm putting this on here is these holes are not lining up exactly. And on a guitar like this, I'm a little hesitant to just start drilling holes. So what I'm gonna end up doing is just kind of taping it on there for right now before I go and talk to the proper owner of this guitar and decide what to do from there. So until I can talk to the actual owner, I'm just gonna tape that pickguard on and wait to drill some holes. Now I'll give you a pretty good look at this neck here. You can see this reverse Telecaster style headstock. I put some staggered tuners on here to kind of help with even everything out, and so we don't need a string tree as we move forward. But just trying to get that all the way in there now and get it all lined up so we can put everything back together. I'm gonna put a little clamp in here, just a little squeeze clamp to help make that neck go fully against the body. I've been having trouble recently, even had some brand new guitars in, whereas whoever it was tightening up the screws on the neck plate, it just pushes the neck away from the body, and it never tightens up properly, and the neck angle's never right, and you're more likely to tear out your holes. So I found that just putting a little clamp on while we snug up those screws tends to stop that from happening and lets you tighten it all the way up with no issues. I am finishing these off by hand. I could have finished them off with the drill, but I don't want to over tighten anything and strip the holes. So I'd much rather just kind of finish it up with the screwdriver. Know I can stop exactly where I want to and not have to risk tearing out these brand new holes on this neck. Now I say brand new. I did not drill these holes in the neck. They came to me drilled, so I'm just trying to use what I've got and not tear up anything that I don't need to. So as I take that clamp off of there, I know that my my neck is snugly against the body, and I can just kind of put that last little bit of finish on there. Had to take the clamp off anyway. It was just a little bit in my way as I'm trying to finish these guys up. The strings that I'm putting on here were provided by the customer. They are a special set just for this. Don't ask me what they're set up for, but he asked me to intonate it for E flat, so half step down. So I think that's what these strings are actually kind of meant for. But we'll give this a little bit of a cleanup before we do that, get any of the dusty bits off that are hard to do while it's got strings. And then we can put some strings on there. What always tends to throw me off is putting the strings in from the back. I always seem to want to do it backwards from how I need to do it, but I got it right on the first one on this one. We'll try to get it right for the rest of them as well. The nut slots on this new neck are basically brand new. I just cut them very, very shallow before I put this neck on. So I know that everything is going to need to be lowered. So as I'm putting these strings on, I need them on at this point so I can really get a sense of how high they are, the nut slots. But I know that it's going to have to come down. So I'm not super worried about it yet, but I'll need strings on to see really, really where the nut slots are. So we got all the strings on there, and they're tuned up pretty close. But as you can see right, as soon as I find the right pick, that one will work. Right here, they won't hold that pick at the first fret. We really want these strings to hold that pick at the first fret. That's a really thin pick, and we want it to be able to hold it there. So we'll have to get out our nut files and start taking them down. The way I do this is one at a time, so I can keep tension on the neck, and I know kind of where everything is. And we will just carve a little bit off at a time. These are still pretty high, so I can carve off a good amount before I'm worried about getting too low. I just kind of got to keep an eye on where my file is, not running into the fret, not running into the headstock, keeping a fairly straight line through the nut. You really don't need that much like angle, downward angle. It runs fairly straight through here. I know some people aren't really going to like the way I measure string height at the nut using a really thin pick, but overall, for me, for the way I do setups, for the fact that every setup is a little different because every customer is a little different, very thin pick is a good measurement for like a base standard nut height. You want it to be pretty much buzzing off that pick, even if it doesn't hold it. But you want that pick to pretty much be held underneath it. This can be a relatively long and involved process. This is why replacing nuts can be fairly expensive. You can't go back once you filed it away, so you don't want to go too far. You have to do this in steps. Take a little off at a time, check it, take a little bit more, check it. Because once you've gone past it, it'll never be as good as it was before then. There's a few ways to build up a nut, but it's not as good as having not done it in the first place. The last thing you want to keep an eye on when you're doing these nut filing jobs is you don't want to file these slots too deep without taking off some of the height on the top of the nut. Really, only about half of the string should be sitting inside the nut. The strings can be sitting very close to the top. If you get too deep, you're going to have too much friction, and it's really just going to cause problems down the line for getting your strings to slide through the nut easier. As I do my final little tune-up here, we got the string height set just the way I want it. It's looking really good. We're really happy with everything that we've done here. And I'll do a little playthrough as we go. But I just want to thank you all for watching this this neck swap and setup on this cool little Telecaster guitar. Once again, thanks for watching, and if you got time, you can stop by Butler Music in Harrisonville, Missouri, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 5:30, and see me. So long, bye-bye.